Welcome to Right Here, Right Now with Archita. It is that time of the year when the air is typically abuzz with back-to-school activities. Not this year. Online distance learning, hybrid learning, a very different scenario. Not an easy choice for parents. To help us navigate this uncharted territory is Dr. Ambreen Syed, a pediatrician with Stanford Children's Health Group and a mother of two. Let's hear it from her.
My name is Ambreen Syed. I'm a recent transplant from East Coast to Bay Area. I'm a mother of two kids. We love being here. Growing up, I moved around a lot, and so I have two younger siblings. So I was always kind of in a caretaker role growing up. And so going into pediatrics and working with the family unit felt really natural to me. And I just love working with the family unit. I love working with the kids one-on-one and then discussing the plan and the diagnosis with the parents as well. So you really get to talk on the level of the kids and as well as with the parents and a lot of time grandparents. So I just love seeing that dynamic of the family unit. So that's kind of what drew me to pediatrics. So it's really interesting, the data is changing. What we're learning, we're learning so much on a daily basis about this disease. Initially, we thought COVID-19 was more of a respiratory illness, and now we're actually seeing it's pretty much affecting every system of the body. We're seeing GI symptoms, we're seeing cardiac symptoms, we're seeing an inflammatory response syndrome that we're seeing connected with the virus as well. So it really does seem to affect all parts of the body. So we're definitely learning a lot more about this disease. We're learning a lot about the illness. Initially, we thought maybe kids were not transmitting as much. We are seeing that they tend to have less severe disease. In the United States, about 2% of COVID-19 cases are below the age of 18, and 5% of pediatric cases are considered severe disease. So this data, these percentages mirror the data out of China. So it does look like kids get less severe disease, but in terms of transmissibility, we thought initially that kids may not transmit as much, but actually the newer research is pointing into the direction that maybe kids do transmit more efficiently than adults. There was a recent study in the Journal of the American Medical Association out of Chicago, and they looked at the number of viral particles in the nose of kids less than 5 compared to adults and adolescents, and they actually carry more viral particles in their nose. So we think that perhaps this could mean that they transmit more efficiently. When they sneeze, more virus goes into the air. So in terms of transmissibility, we're learning a lot more. They may be more efficient transmitters than we originally thought. Similar contact tracing research out of Italy it corroborates that those findings as well. That study is still under peer review, but it is initially showing that less than 4 could be those children may transmit more than adults and adolescents. So it's interesting to see how, as we're getting more and more information, that we're learning a lot more of how this virus is, presenting itself in kids. There is new data from the Journal of Pediatrics that shows that up to 50% of cases of COVID-19 can have a co-infection. So you could have both. So you could have COVID-19 and you could have flu. So being vaccinated against the flu is especially important, because if your body is fighting 2 viruses at the same time, it's going to be really challenging to recover from something like that. So, that is one of our concerns. With COVID-19, I think a lot of families and parents and patients in general, they're scared. They're scared about coming into the office for their regular routine healthcare maintenance. They're scared to come in for routine vaccines. Offices, we're doing the best we can to kind of reduce and minimize the risk of exposure to anybody, but it is really important to come in for those healthcare maintenance visits and to get those vaccines to help, curb that, concern that we have in terms of kids getting both, or being able to differentiate between the two. That's going to be very difficult for us, because a lot of times it could just be a co-infection, or because COVID-19 presents in so many different ways, it mimics a lot of other viruses. So it's going to be very challenging for us to tease it out. So it's really important to, if a child is having any types of sick symptoms, to really call the pediatrician and talk to them and decide what kind of testing might be needed, what next steps would be most appropriate. We're really concerned about, how this is going to affect our children. I looked back to see if there's any data. The Journal of Child and Adolescent Psychology has an interesting report where they reviewed previous research on what does the effect of disease containment strategies have on children. And they looked at disease containment strategies used in the SARS virus, avian flu, swine flu, to look at the different effects. What they did see was higher rates of loneliness, social anxiety, and depression. So we are concerned about those effects on children. And I think, because kids are going to be on the screens a lot more, we completely expect that with schools going online, with hybrid programs, we definitely expect that. But actually, screen time and social media can actually help play a role in curbing those effects on social anxiety, depression, and loneliness. So I think for parents, really promoting, basically with screen time, all types of screen time, you can't put all types of screen time into one box. Like, different types of screen time have different levels of connection and interaction, and they're going to have different effects. So actually, playing a pro-social video game with your friends can actually help curb some of that loneliness that they might be feeling from disease containment strategies. So looking at pro-social games, anything that fosters a connection. So, FaceTiming, group chats, playing games on your group chat, like headbands or, charades and things like that. Anything that's interactive is much better than just a child sitting and watching a fast-paced cartoon that they're not really interacting with. Also, sitting together and watching a movie together or a cartoon together is better than a child watching it alone on their own, because you can talk about it and say, oh, what did you think about what that character just did? And it's more of a discussion. And looking at media that's sort of slower paced media content. For kids, a lot of cartoons are really fast paced, bright, loud sounds, and so we do worry a little bit about effects on attention and desensitization. So slower paced content is much better. So doing things like audiobooks, podcasts, coloring on the iPad, doing puzzles on the iPad, those things are better than just sitting and watching cartoons. But of course, we're in a new world, and I think it's all about balance and encouraging the kids to have breaks. We need to have them get outside every day, not just for the physical activity, but when you're doing physical activity, your serotonin levels go up, and serotonin is one of your happy hormones. So it kind of will help with, any feelings that they might be feeling of being isolated, and also help with overall health. In school, kids get a lot of physical activity. So we are seeing some of our BMI measurements going up between kids from the checkups I've been doing this summer versus last summer. We are seeing some increased trends in weight. It's very real. So I think, that would, kind of keeping them in some sort of routine and getting them outside every day is really important. And in terms of screen time, and I think a lot of school curricula are doing it, they're kind of scheduling in breaks. So it's important for them to be able to get a break and not have these large chunks of time that they're on the screen. I think we're definitely concerned about kids who already have some sort of underlying mental health concern. We're definitely concerned about those kids, especially going into a situation where they're not able to see their therapist in person, they're not able to take advantage of all the counseling and services that are normally in place. So it is really important to make sure, even though it's online. A lot of therapists are doing telehealth visits, so it's really important to maintain those visits. We have found that in the past, when we've seen disease containment strategies and when we saw some of these effects on loneliness and depression, what they found that was if there was some sort of curricula that was put into the school curriculum to address the emotional well-being of children while they're going through shelter and quarantine, that you can really help curb those feelings. And they found that if you did it a couple times a week was much better than if you did it an hour once a month. So I think for us as parents, we really need to connect with our community resources and our school boards to make sure that they are incorporating time to have that time to just to have a discussion like, how are you feeling? And we're all feeling this, and I think it's important for kids to know that we're all going through this. We're all feeling this is a new environment for us, totally unprecedented, and it manifests in many different ways. And I think there's a whole campaign about it's okay to not feel okay, and I think that's really important. Just check in, do a mental health check-in every day with your kids. Like, how was school? How'd it go? What was good about today? What was bad about today? Just talking it out really helps, and just acknowledging their feelings. And I think modeling good behavior too, just like oh, I'm feeling a little stressed, so I'm going to go for a walk. Because we're feeling COVID-19, we're feeling the effects of not being able to see our parents or extended family, things like that. So I think it's important to model that to our kids, that I'm feeling a little stressed. I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to take a deep breath, or I'm going to go write in my journal or something. So kids can sort of see that and do that, kind of emulate that behavior as well. Yeah, I think those are some things that we kind of have to think about and keep in mind.
Hi, Ambreen.
Hi, Archita. Thanks for having me
on the show. And we were listening to all your recommendations and advice, and they were all great tips. Your viewpoint was highly valuable. Now, I have a quick few questions to summarize. In the post-COVID world, incorporating best practices in children, what can parents tell children about best practices once they're back to school?
I think the post-COVID world is going to be interesting, because we're going to see. So I wonder, my husband and I were just discussing this, like, are people going to still order online as much? And I think probably. I think we've learned some new behaviors. I think COVID-19 world, is it going to be a post-vaccine world, or ideally, once we have the vaccine, I think we can go back to somewhat more of a normal routine that we had previously. But if it's not a vaccine, and if rates are just lower, and the schools decide to open up based on county health department guidelines, I imagine it's going to be somewhat of a gradual return to normal. So I imagine probably they'll still have distances between the desks. They may still want, kids and the teachers to wear masks. You might not see water fountains at school anymore. People will be bringing their own bottles to school, bringing their own food to school. The cafeteria and eating setup is probably going to be changed as well. More distance. So I think we'll probably see more of a gradual back to normal, rather than all of a sudden it's just going to be the way it was before COVID hit us. And I think there's probably going to be a lot of sort of disinfection, sanitization stuff that we probably should have been doing beforehand as well. That we'll see.
So many topics to talk about, even with kids. I mean, their entire ecosystem, it's kind of rattled right now.
It's true. It's a big change for the whole family unit, for the children, the family unit, how everything works on a daily basis has been completely flipped.
Different parts of the puzzles. So the county guidelines do not mandate masks for kids below 12. And disallow masks for kids below 2 years of age, is my understanding.
Yes.
Should kids above 2 or 3 practice wearing masks?
Yes. So the American Academy of Pediatrics is very much promotes wearing masks above the age of 2. Below the age 2 or below, there's a risk for suffocation because they're so small. So we don't want to put masks on children who are 2 or younger. But 2 and above, we do want to encourage them to wear masks, especially if they are more easily transmitting virus. It would be even more important for the younger ones to wear masks. And, I think it's just about habit. Yeah, I understand a lot of parents will say, yeah, the kids, they're not going to keep it on. They're not going to keep it on. But eventually it becomes a habit. And if they start off wearing it 10% of the time, and then, you keep encouraging, you might get them to 30%. Even that, in a world pandemic, if you can cut down how much shedding your child is releasing into the air by 30%, that's still a big number. And if everybody can do that by 30%, that's still, that could still make a difference. So even if it's not on all the time, if they're slowly going to wear it more often as they get used to it. Children, it's all about just encouraging them, and eventually they kind of get used to it, especially at that age. Especially if you make it fun for them. If you get like, okay, let's pick out a superhero mask, or make it fun for them, or they can decorate the mask. Just kind of making it fun and interesting for them. And I think we should try to encourage them to, definitely the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that children above the age of 2 do wear masks. I think if we encourage them, it can definitely just become a routine and habit, and we make it fun for them. And if we model it, if we're wearing our masks, then they will wear it too. And and talking to them and explaining to them, the reason we wear masks is we want to help protect everybody, and we want to protect our friends, we want to protect our neighbors. And so if if we want to go into the store, we need to wear a mask to protect everyone. And kids are very smart, even like we think even at such a even 3-year-old, like I was talking to my son, my daughter was drinking this flavored carbonated water drink, and I just looked at the back to see how much sugar was in there. I was like, oh, this has 19 grams of sugar. And then my 3-year-old was like, Mama, and he showed me another bottle, and he's like, how much does that have in it? And I didn't even realize he was observing it. But I told him, I was like, Aiden, this one has 21 grams of sugar, and he doesn't really understand grams or sugar, but him seeing that I'm looking at something and reading the ingredients of what is going into my body, that's a good habit. That's a good thing for him to start to see. So I think that a big part of it is like modeling and encouraging and just talking to them and explaining to them. Even if we think they might not completely understand it, they'll capture bits of it.
I agree. Yeah. So just to share a little bit of my experience here, my 4-year-old who started going to preschool in the last month or so is doing so much better wearing masks, and as soon as she comes home, she washes her hands.
Oh, that's great.
That's because of the modeling technique that you're talking about, because she sees the teachers talking about it and the other kids doing it. So she actually is following and is part of the part just by watching.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Get through to her head before.
That's great.
That was very interesting to me when I observed that she's doing everything by the book now. Do you recommend that kids get tested?
So that's a great question. I think in an ideal world, if we had unlimited tests and unlimited manpower to process the tests and unlimited media, we would have like widespread surveillance testing. So everyone would be getting tested every week or 2 weeks. A lot of colleges are doing that sort of model where the kids come to college and then every 2 weeks they get tested. But we're not in that situation. We don't have unlimited supply of tests. So I do think it's really important to talk to your pediatrician to decide if testing is indicated or not. It really, depends like on the situation. Was there an exposure? Is there an upcoming procedure, upcoming travel? Is there going to be an upcoming contact with a high-risk family member? Does the child have symptoms? What symptoms do they have? So kind of piecing is the child in childcare, versus child is at home. So all of those pieces you have to put together and then decide if testing is indicated. But I do recommend if there's any doubt or any concern of wanting to get testing, just talk to your pediatrician, and then they'll kind of assess what's going on, and then do the testing. At Stanford, the testing is really easy. We don't even have to see the patient in the office. We do a telehealth visit, kind of learn about what the situation is, what's going on, and then we send patients to our drive-through testing, and that's been very, very helpful and very convenient. They've been able to get patients in within 24 hours, sometimes the same day. They get them in, and they come to your car and they swab you, so you don't have to go inside anywhere. So it's been really good.
Does the testing hurt? This is off tangent.
Yeah, I've heard it referred to as a brain biopsy. I know, but interesting. I feel like the adults have been complaining a lot more than the kids. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they just, they're tolerating, but I've heard a lot more complaints from parents than the children themselves. But yes, it is painful.
She wants to get tested, and she keeps telling me so that she can have a little bit of a social bubble.
Oh, right.
With a couple of friends. And
Yeah.
I just don't know if that is a good idea, but she's so bored.
Is this your daughter? Who is this? Your daughter?
13-year-old. I have a 13-year-old.
Oh, there's your right.
Yeah.
So social bubbles, I think the San Mateo County Public Health Department has a really nice description of social bubbles. And I think it's really important to look at your local county health department guidelines, because they stem from local transmission data. So what's being recommended in Washington, D.C. is very different from what's being recommended in the Bay Area. So it's really important to look at local transmission rates. So last I checked, the San Mateo County Health Department did say that, if a family would like to, and after discussion with their doctor, if they would like to do a social bubble, that these are the things this is how you do a social bubble. So I think that's really important to look at. And, they have exact guidelines of how many people should be in the social bubble. And then those people should not be social bubbling with others, because then it's just not really a social bubble then. Yeah. Doing activities outside, it's going to be lower risk. Wearing masks, social distancing, that's all going to help minimize risk as well. I think, and I think it's important if a family is thinking about doing a social bubble, I think it's also important to talk to the pediatrician as well, because they can help have that conversation with you, because everything, it's all about dialing risk, right? There's just this risk dial that we're dialing. Nothing is completely zero risk. And so where that dial sits is different for every family's comfort level and what's going on in their family. Also, the CDC has a really good toolkit online as well, that they help families to decide, like, if they want to send their kids to daycare or not, and they kind of help you stratify that risk. They ask you a whole bunch of questions, like who's living in the home, how old are they, anyone with medical problems, and they kind of help walk you through that and making that decision. And so I think that's important to take a look at too.
I'm just going to quickly summarize. With the flu season coming in the fall, doctor offices are likely to be severely impacted. How should parents watch for symptoms in children? How best to differentiate between a regular flu and the COVID?
So this is a great question. This is a great question. It's going to be, we're not going to be able to differentiate based on just symptoms alone, because there's so much overlap, and because there's also the risk of co-infection, because we're seeing such high rates, up to 50% reported, that people with COVID-19 have some other virus as well. So I think it's going to be very challenging for parents to differentiate between the two, let alone for physicians, and without any sort of testing. So testing will really help us differentiate in those situations. So my recommendation would be, as we're going into the fall and the winter, any symptom that you see, just call your pediatrician, and they can kind of guide you and walk you through it and tell you what they think. But flu and COVID-19 have a lot in common. And so it's going to be very hard for families to differentiate between the two, I think. So they're definitely going to have to reach out to the pediatrician, see if testing might be indicated. We have a flu test as well, so that can be helpful. But a lot of times, if you test positive for the flu, it doesn't rule out COVID-19, because there could be this co-infection. So typically, they'll probably need both tests. I'm thinking as we're going into the future, we're probably into the fall, spring, we're probably going to be doing, if anyone who's getting a flu test is probably getting a COVID-19 test as well.
Right. What about the flu vaccine? I mean, I guess you always doctors always recommend it.
We should be getting the flu. Our office should be getting it end of August. So I definitely think it's a good idea to get your, we vaccinate with the flu all the way from end of August through May. So the flu season is long and it has some peaks in that time frame. So I think it's especially important to get it early so that you have coverage for the whole season instead of waiting until November or December. I think it's especially important this year to get it early because we have COVID-19 in our communities right now. So we really need to make sure that try to take that element out of the picture.
Right. So that concludes my questions. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.